So as you know, I am a veterinary oncologist. So I'm a veterinarian whose sole practice is devoted to cancer care for animals. I've treated dogs, cats, birds, ferrets, and bunny rabbits. Of course, the irony is, or what felt like a sucker punch to my gut, is that I developed metastatic C word in 2018. I know, the C word. That is me being completely dysfunctional. Here, I've treated cancer every day for my patients and their families for almost 30 years, but I can't say that word for myself. I can only call it the C word. My veterinary nurses would say to me, Dr. A, that's not what the C word means. But for me, it did. And I certainly didn't want to own that word. There was a silver lining, though, that stemmed from my treatments, and it's the lessons that I learned from our four-legged friends. Sure, dogs are incredible companions, but I had no idea how much they can actually teach us. I do believe that dogs are not just fantastic support, but I know that they are incredible guides for when we struggle, and we all struggle at times. Some lessons are quite profound. Others are small compared to some of the things that we've all gone through. But if we look to our furry friends, we can really learn a lot. They can make our lives better. In fact, recently, someone who read my book, she has a healthy 5-year-old West Highland White Terrier named Oscar. She said that after she read the book, she felt that she was a better dog parent. She felt that she was a better person, and she felt happier. Okay, so a little background on me. In 2018, after having no clinical signs, not even losing a single pound, and trust me, I would have welcomed that, from my routine or yearly gynecologic exam, I was ultimately diagnosed with endometrial C word, so cancer of the uterus, and it was metastatic. I underwent a radical hysterectomy, and because it had already spread, 25 fractions or treatments of radiation therapy and months of chemotherapy, receiving 3 different drugs in total. And while there are so many similarities between how we treat pets with cancer and how people with cancer are treated, there are some very huge differences between the two species. And I know that we are all so incredibly blessed to have the incredible benefit of the best medical care and the latest advancements in human medicine. I'm sure we are all very grateful, truly. And yet, I think that human medicine could perhaps learn a few things from the veterinary world. I remember each time I walked into the human waiting room, it was as if I could hear a pin drop. It didn't matter if I was the first appointment of the day at 7 a.m., or if I arrived mid-morning after rush hour traffic, or even if I came in the afternoon. There was just silence. I would look around, wondering what was up. I had noticed that some people came to their oncology appointment alone. Some came with a friend or a spouse. Some people seemed to bring their entire entourage with them, and my guess is you know who you are, right? We all did it how we needed to do it for ourselves, how it was best for us to go through. There is no wrong answer with who comes in with us or who doesn't come with us. But the thing is, no one talked. The friend, the spouse, the entire entourage, they rarely, if uttered, a word to each other. In fact, and this is especially true for my really early morning appointments, it seemed that we all just wanted to get in and get out as quickly as possible, hoping to leave unscathed, maybe even unseen. Some people would mindlessly scroll on their phones. Others would just stare down at their shoes. But none of us talked within our group, let alone to another patient. In general, though no one spoke, we all knew what each of us was going through. It was like riding the subway in New York City, where custody of the eyes was the mantra you lived by, or at least in this instance, lived by while waiting for the nurse to call you into your appointment. So I decided to change my experience while sitting, waiting. And it was actually because of my veterinary patients. Think how much time we spend or have spent just waiting. This was my time, and it felt like such a waste doing nothing but just wishing I didn't have to be there. This pertains truly to any doctor appointment, but it really came to light during how many times I sat in the waiting room because of my C word. 25 RT treatments, numerous rounds of chemo, doctor rechecks, blood work appointments, CT scans. It adds up. It's a lot. In fact, according to studies, in our lifetime, it is said that Americans will spend approximately 6 months just waiting. In general, we can't control these situations, but we can control the experience while sitting there. I know I often felt like I just followed my doctor's treatment plan blindly, but here in the waiting room, I could make my own choices, have my own power. Not only can we make time spent in a waiting room more useful, we can also take a nod from the four-legged among us and make it a lot happier. So here is the difference. In veterinary medicine, the waiting room is anything but quiet. A dog pulls at the end of the leash while walking through the front door, wanting to sniff as much territory as possible. I don't know about you, but my tail was between my legs the first time I walked into the cancer center. I was anything but eager. I had negative thoughts and fearful emotions racing through my head. Not our canine companions. The veterinary waiting room is a busy place. At times, it's really loud. In general, it's always a buzz. Think of it. When you are at the vet's, you might sit near someone or at the most a couple of seats away from someone. And what does your dog do? She pulls on the leash, wanting to get to your neighbor to say hi, to get in a few good sniffs, greet the other dog, or see what is actually in the big plastic box. Surprise, right? It's a cat in a cat carrier. Your dog make friends. Okay, well, so perhaps makes a friendly acquaintance with the family sitting next to you. And what do? Initially, and we all do this, you pull your dog back. You don't want to be intrusive. You don't want your dog to overstep. And you really don't know these people. But when you realize we are all here with the same intent, because of the love we have for our sick or injured animal, or hopefully here with the love we have just on a routine annual checkup, and then your neighbor smiles back at you. The caution you had wanes. You loosen the grip you had on the leash. Your dog's tail goes a mile a minute, for your dog sees the majority of people that she meets as friends. Your four-legged companion is hoping for a belly rub or a butt rub. Okay, again, we don't want exactly the same thing for us, but guess what does happen? Then you begin to share stories. You share experiences. I love someone's dog that I can see right now. You tell of the first time that you saw your dog when he was a darling puppy. The lonely waiting room is no longer lonely. It is a welcoming environment. Amidst dogs barking, cats meowing, there is a friendly camaraderie between pet parents. And you are not sitting across from someone in any sort of judgment, nor with any barrier. You are sitting next to them, each a part of the same experience. As a veterinary oncologist, I used to introduce pet parents to one another, always cognizant to first ask each individual if it was okay to meet. Often, I did that because one family might be struggling with decisions to treat, and I knew another family could offer a different view on the topic, more than I could as the veterinarian. It can help to talk to someone who is literally going through what you are about to go through, or even what you are going through at that very moment. And sometimes, if we're being honest, people don't always believe the information from the medical personnel. Patients, like I was, want to know what someone actually experiencing it says about chemo. Sometimes I would introduce two people because I thought it would be a good fit, making their wait time more pleasant. After a few initial awkward sentences, people really liked it. They shared stories of what life was like with a dog getting radiation therapy or chemotherapy. They shared stories of their lives. The best part of all, and this was the biggest surprise, was that the waiting room, which can be cold and leave you feeling lonely, became its own support group, a support group. That was huge. My clients started booking their recheck appointments together for the same day and the same time each week or couple of weeks on purpose. They would look to see forward to seeing each other. They would worry if they didn't see each other, but they were a friendly face in a sea of strangers. I actually had some pet parents who started meeting outside of the veterinary center and meet for lunch. Two people even went to see a punk rock band called the Misfits, who happened to be in concert. I have to admit, I've never heard of the Misfits, but they would report that they had a great time. Occasionally, I would be asked by a pet parent about a treatment that they learned about from the person sitting next to them to see if it would be good for their canine. By being inquisitive, they opened up new possibilities. There are some very funny veterinary moments, actually. There's one, Bentley Bean. He was an overweight geriatric beagle. His pot belly dragged so close to the ground, at times you swore it was going to graze the linoleum floor. Bentley would come in every 3 weeks for chemotherapy with his dad, who unfortunately also had cancer. But the beagle would bray loud and proud when he was happy or smelled a dog treat or if he saw a friend. And the waiting room would roar with laughter. He filled it with happiness, taking any somberness out of the air. So now comes the time when I had to sit, waiting to be called to machine number 433 for radiation, or for my labs to see if it was okay for me to get chemotherapy that day. I decided to let my veterinary patients set the bar higher for me. I decided to act, okay, no jokes. I decided to act more like a dog, and I realize there's a joke in there, but we're going to leave that alone. And I must add that I didn't go over and try to sniff anyone, but I decided that whoever sat next to or near me, well, that was their fault. I became determined to talk with them. It took a few tries, a few stop-starts, but eventually I broke through. I would start by asking, so, what are you in for? As if the diagnosis was a jail sentence and we're headed to the slammer. Okay, maybe my approach was not the best, but I thought I was hilarious. But guess what? People started to talk. At first, we did the cursory dance of what type of C word do you have or what treatment are you getting? But then it blossomed into so much more. And then guess what happened? We would look for each other at our mini appointments. We would share how we were feeling. If you think about it, no matter how thoughtful and caring a family member or a friend can be, they don't really understand what it is like to go through treatment or how you really feel. But my waiting room friends understood. And when it came my time to ring that bell that signaled I had completed my RT part of the treatment regime, my fellow waiting room friends stayed after their appointments to be there to see or hear me ring that darn bell loud and proud. It was a special moment, made so much more special because of them. In fact, truth be told, prior to meeting them, I would have seriously told you that I didn't want to ring that bell. After all, why did it matter? No one knew me. When a veterinary patient of mine completes their chemotherapy protocol, my team would always trot the dog back out to his pet parents while we played the theme song on our cell phone. from Rocky, which is actually called Gonna Fly Now. Just as an aside, I never knew the theme song actually had a real title, but the joy in the waiting room was palpable for them. In the veterinary waiting room, people frequently would overhear each other's conversations. Sometimes the news was sad, but many times it would bring hope. Police officer Christopher Nelson would tell of his latest successful search and rescue mission with Franny, his trusty partner and sidekick. Franny happened to be a 120-pound bloodhound who lumbered when she walked, often leaving a trail of drool along her path. During her chemotherapy protocol, Franny went on, while getting treatments, to find lost children and even nab some bad guys. Truth be told, Franny started off as a 76-pound bloodhound, and granted, she was thinner than she should have been initially because she had cancer. But that girlfriend gained 50 pounds and never looked back, was as happy as can be. It's actually been over 6 years now, and Franny continues to do well. Just like my veterinary patient families, I also learned from my fellow waiting room friends. I was always happy to share my story or help with a question, but my main intent was to listen to them, their story, what they did to minimize or quell some of the side effects or some of their fears and concerns. I'm going to read to you just a small excerpt from the book. The book primarily centers around my dog patients and the life lessons that they teach us as people. But this next bit speaks to learning how we all go through the C word. For me, losing my hair, or not wanting to lose my hair, was a really big deal. I never realized how vain I could be, but if I actually thought about it, I don't think it was vanity. I think I was just trying to control something that wasn't controllable. So for the book, I've met a few ladies with whom I've developed an ongoing waiting room relationship. I look for them each time I come, hoping to see a familiar face and to hear how they're doing. Each one of these waiting room buddies comes alone. Janice, in for breast cancer, is from the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We always chat just a bit, encouraging each other while trying to fill the void before our names are called for treatment. It's odd which part of the necessary losses each of us struggles with. Janice's biggest fear from receiving chemotherapy and radiation therapy is losing her eyelashes. Mine have already jumped ship. We refer to her lashes as her little friends. The fact that she's lost her hair doesn't seem to bother her so much, maybe because she looks quite good in her wig. A woman from Newark is actually glad about her hair loss because she always struggled with dreaded facial hair, and now that's no longer an issue. Another woman had shaved her head from time to time as a fashion statement, so hair loss doesn't faze her. A fourth woman doesn't care if she only has a few strands. She isn't going to let any of them go. For me, I mourn the loss of each and every follicle. For me, listening to these ladies helped me emotionally deal with my necessary losses. I think in part, it humanized the experience for me. Funny, right? Learning from a dog helps to humanize the experience. Another example is at times, or initially, I would see a woman in the dressing room with a terrible burn. And it's maybe not so nice to say, but I used to think, oh boy, I better stay away. That looks bad. Or, oh my gosh, what if that happens to me? Because I had just started RT. But by acting like a dog, we became friends or friendly acquaintances, and it wasn't so scary anymore. I put a name and a smile and a story in front of the side effects of RT. And here's the kicker. Instead of her feeling self-conscious, quickly yet gingerly trying to change into her RT gown, she felt seen and heard and accepted. In reaching out to help yourself, You're also helping your fellow cancer comrade. A golden retriever's goal is to please. So maybe, even if you don't want to reach out for yourself, maybe reaching out to be kind to a fellow patient, golden retriever style, is the best way to be. In addition to emotional support, I learned some very concrete things by talking to people, or more specifically, listening to the people who so innocently sat next to me. While waiting to be called to get my catheter for chemotherapy, I would strike up a conversation. If I found out that we were getting the same or had had the same chemo drug, I would ask them if they experienced certain side effects. Can I tell you, it was life-changing. I actually learned a few tips that greatly improved my recovery. It truly helped. Of course, never, ever did I do anything first without checking with my oncology doctors. It didn't even matter if my new friend had the exact same type of cancer or that I perceived we had the same exact treatment. Because remember, every person is different, right? I can't stress that enough. But when I did bring these things up to my medical team, and I always checked with them first, I got, oh yeah, that can help. Or, oh yeah, that's a good idea. A good idea. Thank heavens I made that waiting room friend, because they helped make what I was going through easier. By swapping stories, we helped one another, right? No sense in reinventing the wheel. Let us learn from each other. It is important that we are our own advocate. And if you are taking care of someone that maybe cannot speak up for themselves, please step into that role. We have nothing to lose by being inquisitive, by being an advocate. Sometimes my husband would even chime in and I would give him a look like, oh my gosh, just be quiet. But you know, it was to help me. And ultimately, it really did help. In veterinary medicine, there is something sweeping the nation called the fear-free movement. I don't know how many of you have heard of it, but basically, having a fear-free hospital or the fear-free movement is the concept of practicing veterinary medicine, which involves the reduction of feelings of stress in our patients, which in turn will result in a better experience for everyone involved, not just pets, but their families and even the veterinary team. Much of fear-free pertains to the waiting room experience. I get why they termed it fear-free, but I really think it is about being stress-free. It is stressful to go to the doctor. It's not always about fear, but about a wide variety of emotions that can broadly be labeled as stress. And stress isn't good for any of us, right? We know that stress can contribute to the C word, to weight gain, cardiovascular problems, an aging brain, diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, as well as many other conditions. And we need to find ways to reduce stress, and we need to be advocates for ourselves in our lives. And that includes the time that we spend in the waiting room. I'm going to go over some fear-free points that we consider in veterinary medicine. For those of you with animals, this alone will be really good use. But my ultimate intent, obviously, with this lecture is to perhaps give us all some ideas on how to improve our waiting room experience when we ourselves are the patient. Okay, there are 12 of them. Number one, fear-free. Find out if the clinic is well-versed in or certified in the fear-free movement. Obviously, this one really is more for those with pets, but I had to be inclusive. Number two, call ahead. Is the veterinarian running behind? Can you avoid a long wait? Sometimes, if we don't have to sit for longer than necessary, it can help. Everyone's time is valuable. Certainly, you don't ever want to be late nor have the medical team wait on you. But if you know that the team runs behind as they are incredibly, totally understandably busy, then perhaps having a bit more time at home helps, or instead take a slow walk in a park around the hospital. It will help the process for you. Number 3, bring along a comforting toy, stuffy, or blanket from home. Ha, right? All right. This might look a little odd if you bring in a stuffed animal, but just think about that for a second. It helps a child when they are in need for some extra security. I know that I would sometimes put a little something in my pocket. Of course, a purse would work as well, but a pocket kept that item right against my body. It might be a small keepsake that has a memory filled with love, or perhaps it reminds me that I am not alone, or perhaps it reminds me that I have people around me who love me. I would put my hand in my pocket periodically and just feel it. It brought me comfort and it gave me courage. Sometimes I'd bring a small note to myself or one written by someone else, which would just help me to have a reminder of care. I suppose I could have reread it, but I never needed to. Knowing it was there was enough to bring me comfort. Number 4, cover the cat carrier or small dog carrier to provide security. I'd have loved some days where I could just pull the covers up over my head so that nobody could see me. This is again about establishing security. Okay, so this is a safe space, right? So most of you don't know me, but my son, he happens to be visually impaired. And he often wears a hoodie or a sweatshirt with the hood at certain appointments, especially when he is feeling insecure or concerned about what might transpire. So I notice that he puts this hoodie up, having that fabric envelop his head. So get this, I actually tried it, and it is extremely comforting. It's warm and cozy, and hopefully I don't think I look too weird as an adult doing that. Number 5, room to just be alone. Don't be shy. Ask the vet hospital if they have an exam room or a designated room that can be just for you and your pet to wait for the appointment to reduce anxiety. Sometimes a clinic, veterinary or human hospital, won't have the extra space or the extra room, but they might. If it is a particularly hard day and you need to be alone, it is okay to ask. We do this for animals that are terribly afraid, as the activity in the vet waiting room only increases their anxiety. We also do this for terribly fractious dogs who don't get along with others. Of course, that's one of the benefits of veterinary medicine. We can muzzle our nasty patients. I don't think that would go over so well if they did that in human hospitals. Number 6, pheromone spray or a pheromone collar can be calming to some animals. We know that stimulation of the olfactory system, the system in our body or brain that senses smell, can influence our stress levels, and certain smells have empirically been shown to have a stress suppressing effect, as well as lowering blood temperature, lowering blood pressure, your heart rate, and cortisol. Now, not all smells are necessarily pleasant. They actually, and this is kind of gross, so buyer beware, they observed in humans that if one's partner was emitting body odor, it reduced subjective discomfort during a stressful event for the patient, as compared with having odor oneself, which suggests that partner odor is a sense of security, especially for attachment secure adults. But again, full honesty, I do not want to be sitting next to my husband in the waiting room if I can smell his BO. That smell might take me out of my worried head, but it would not be a pleasant experience. And please note, the full mechanism of action that scents have on the brain has not been fully elucidated. There needs to be further studies on brain chemistry in conjunction with possible benefits of aromatherapy. That said, lavender essential oil has been shown to have very similar effects on receptors in our brain as certain anti-anxiety medications. Studies have found that lavender oil calms the nervous system and lowers blood pressure and heart rate. So what can we do? Maybe you have a favorite perfume or a cologne you can wear, or one that reminds you of your grandmother or your mother. Or maybe you have used some essential oils. Heck, even for me, sad to say, the smell of a good baked good can do wonders. Number 7, dress for success. A thunder shirt may help your dog feel more secure. A thunder shirt is a snug, felt-like coat that fits snugly sort of around your dog's body, giving the feeling like a hug. It was originally intended for canines that are afraid of loud claps of thunder. So obviously, right, we don't have thunder shirts in our size, but it can help to dress in what feels comfortable or what feels cozy. It can sometimes also help to dress up. I know when I am wearing something pretty, it makes me feel better about myself. In fact, I have just another little book excerpt. Again, human-based, though truly there are so many heartwarming canine stories. So from the book, when I go in for my own radiation treatments, I always try to dress nicely, figuring that I should try to look good, even when I feel like hell. I'm not going to let the C word get the best of me. This is part of my battle plan. My husband, on the other hand, the man I love, dresses for extreme comfort when he comes with me, wearing the same dark blue sweatpants he wore to paint our first home in. Truth be told, and embarrassing as it is, I purchased those sweatpants 16 years ago and wore them when I was pregnant. And now my dear spouse sports these speckled pants to interact with the outside world. We sit in the waiting room each time until the radiation therapy receptionist calls my name to head to machine 433. One day early on, I was wearing a pretty red dress and Mike was wearing the infamous sweatpants along with a long sleeve t-shirt frayed at the neckline. True story, people. The RT tech came up to us in the waiting room and leaned over to Mike. "Excuse me, sir," the RT technician whispered. "I can help take you in for your treatment now." She gently offered her hand, thinking that he was the cancer patient and needed assistance. I couldn't help but have an "I told you so" ear to ear smile. I would have thought the experience would have led him to retire the sweats, but alas, I was sadly mistaken. Number 8, frequently talk to your pet. The good dog and good kitty words provide support and positive reinforcement. Add in gentle strokes and pets to reassure them. Experts say that talking can provide stress relief, can lighten the load of concern, and help us release tension instead of keeping it inside. Look to see who is seated around you. If you came with someone, talk to them. You needn't talk about the C word. You could talk about something you want to watch on TV. No one to chat with? Look to the person sitting next to you and strike up a conversation. It'll help. If nothing else, it will help you to pass the time and stop the internal circle of thoughts in your mind. This in turn will build better resistance, according to the experts. If you are the companion to a patient, provide those good kitty statements to us. It really is beneficial. Even if we blow you off, your kind words seep in, even if we don't always admit it. And if there is truly no one to talk to, say kind things to yourself. Be your own best friend. Put one hand over the other as if you are comforting yourself. Number 9, food treats throughout the appointment for your dog or cat can yield positive reinforcement. Okay, who doesn't like to be rewarded with a treat? In the vet world, I often think of them as bribes. The dog sits still, we place the catheter, and they get a biscuit. The pet is happy. Pretty good deal from the canine's perspective. And I am right there with them. Ladies, think about if every time you went to the gynecologist, no offense to these doctors, but typically, right, we don't look forward to that appointment. Well, what if each time when you were done, we got a piece of Godiva? At least that would put a smile on our face, a delicious ending to an otherwise not so fun experience. In fact, I'd love to start a movement in which we are rewarded with a cookie or a chocolate or a treat for being a good patient at the doctor's. Number 10, conditioning. If your pet has anxiety in the car, take them for short, fun rides, perhaps to a park or to get some pup safe and pup approved ice cream. Or take a few trips to your vet's waiting room for some food treats and then head back home. All right, this one I'm hard pressed to find a correlation for people. I certainly didn't want to drive to the cancer treatment center any more than was necessary. But for those of you where the mere act of driving to the hospital is stressful, have someone else drive you, your spouse or a friend. And friends want to help. And this is an easy thing for them to do. I must admit, my first thought for a book, and this is tongue in cheek, was going to be about the different things I learned in the car from the many girlfriends that drove me into my treatments. What a confessional. It was like that coffee in cars with comedian Jerry Seinfeld. Some of the stories I learned would make your jaw drop. It certainly took me out of the fretting that was going on in my own head. Or after your appointment, do something nice. Go get an ice cream cone, go for a meal, or a slow walk in the park. Greenery helps one's attitude, but have something at least to look forward to. Number 11, medications. When everything else fails, sometimes even the best pets need a little medication for anxiety or stress. This is true for us. It is something to talk to your doctor about if you feel you need it. If other methods are not adequately helping and anxiety is making hard to go about your day, medication might be beneficial to just help you take a long, deep breath and relax. Number 12, set a good example. Our four-legged family members are fully in tune with our emotions. If you are stressed and nervous, your dog or cat will pick up on that and could follow suit. Take deep breaths. Talk to your veterinarian before leaving the house to calm your nerves. Listen to a 5-minute meditation on your phone. Reach for Zen, and your furry friend could do the same. So to equate it to us, set a good example for yourself by setting boundaries. Don't let your mind wander too far down the drain. Use a cue that will snap you out of it. For me, it's a double or a triple fast blink blink of my eyelids, which serves as a reset. I feel it's sort of like shuffling my internal Rolodex in my head. Or tell yourself that you will only give that thought a certain amount of time, minutes or hour in your day. Set a limit. Deep breaths always help our fight or flight response. Get an app, a free app on your phone that has meditations to which you can listen. I never used to do that, but I'll tell you this, even a 5-minute meditation, which calms the mind, can leave you feeling a bit better, a bit refreshed. And lastly, reach for your Zen. There are many ways to get through the waiting room experience, and you have the power to make your wait better. And think like a dog. So I think I'm going to end here. We're literally right at 45 minutes. In closing, I would like to read both of the epigraphs in the book. The first is by Doris Day. I have found that when you are deeply troubled, there are things you get from the silent, devoted companionship of a dog that you can get from no other source. The second, by Lisa Turkest. Scars are beautiful when we see them as glorious reminders that we courageously survived. You are all so wonderful. I am in awe of the positive energy that vibrates from you collectively, and I know that I am so blessed to have survived thanks to the incredible medical care that I received with friends and family by my side, and with the help of my four-legged friends setting the bar higher for me. Thank you so much for listening.